And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review.
Hey everyone, it's Ryan Metzler here, and today we're going to be taking a look at a game that is currently up on Kickstarter, looking to get funding. We're going to take a preview look at Seven Sisters by Wishing Tree Games. Seven Sisters is going to be a game for anywhere between 3 and 6 players, so it has quite a wide range of available options in terms of how many people you can play with. And it's a card game in which you're going to be playing cards in order to influence the 7 sisters of the king, and these 7 sisters are named after the 7 deadly sins. Whoever gets the most influence on these sisters each round is going to get a victory point from that sister, as well as a special benefit in order to try and make them more apt to get victory points in the next round. And basically you're going to be trying to collect the most victory points and also full sets of victory points in order to score points for the end of the game. So why don't we take a look at the components, which are going to be prototype components. These are not final quality components. We'll go into gameplay and then I'll come back and sum it all up for you. So here you can see Seven Sisters set up for a 3-player game. Now the game is typically better with more than 3, but it is definitely playable with 3, and as I said, goes up to 6. But in the game there's going to be 7 different sisters out on the board, and these are all individual boards. And each sister is named after a sin. So we have wrath, greed, gluttony, lust, sloth, pride, and envy. And each of them are going to award victory points over 4 different rounds, 1 point per round. Now, what you're going to have is you have, additionally, a bunch of cubes. Each player is going to have 15 cubes in their stock that they may use, and they're also going to have 15 cubes in a reserve stock, which will be hidden behind a player board, which looks like this on one side, and on the other side it has all of the play information. So you're going to have a stock that's usable and a reserve stock that you can get into your usable stock throughout the game. Each player is going to be dealt a hand of 6 cards each round. So you'll have a hand of 6 cards, and you're going to be using these cards to place influence out onto these sisters. And you're going to do so by playing cards each round and taking actions with them. So the first thing that's going to happen each turn is that the first player, who will be denoted by a first turn marker, is going to flip over one of these markers that you see over here. And they're going to flip this over and it's going to have a number on it. For example, this one says 3. And with this 3 marker, what that's going to mean is that you get to take a combination of 3 fruit or gold. So you can see these fruit and gold tokens over here. Gold is going to allow you to buy your workers back at the end of each round. You'll be paying this and you'll take the workers back into your usable stock instead of into your reserve stock. And fruit is going to be used to allow you to play more workers. After you've done this, in turn order, each player is going to be playing one of their 6 cards. And there are 2 types of cards in the game. The first type of card is what's called a Sisters card. And you can see here that these sister cards have some properties on them that I'll go over real quickly. In the top you can see that there is a big or a larger circle with the letter G in it, which means that this is the card for greed. And in the smaller circle there's a small blue circle. You can see that there's an L in it maybe, and it says L for lust. So this is a greed and lust card, greed being the primary sister, lust being the secondary sister. And if I were to play this card down to the table on my turn, I would be able to put 2 of my servants onto greed. That would be the first thing that I have to do by playing this card. So I would put 2 of my servants on greed. Let's say I'm green. After that, if I were to have any fruit, so let's say that at the beginning with that 3 I took 2 fruit and a gold, I could play a fruit back to the supply, and I could place an extra cube onto lust, since lust is the secondary sister on this card. Again, as a third spot, I could pay my extra fruit, my last extra fruit, in order to put another servant out onto the board. And that servant could go either onto lust or greed. So the first 2 go onto the primary sister. The second one, if you choose to pay a fruit, goes onto the secondary sister. And then the third one with the third fruit or the third placement can go onto either. So let's say I wanted to put a second one on lust. And that's going to be one player's turn. So that's how these sister cards work for placing servants. Now, another thing that a sister card can be used to do is, let's say that my cubes were already out on the board, I could play this sister card to move any 2 cubes from the primary sister to any other sister on the board. So let's say that several people had placed servants out on the board throughout the game, and now it's back to green's turn again. And what they want to do is they want to play this card in order to move their servants off of greed onto any other sister on the board. So what they could do, they play this card, they move these servants off of greed to anywhere else on the board. So let's say they move them to gluttony. At this point, they are not allowed to pay fruit to take any further options on their turn, so the only way you get to pay the fruit to place extra people is if you use this to place influence or servants in the first place. The third option with one of these cards is that you can simply discard it to move 3 servants from your reserve stock into your playable stock in order to get more servants to play on your future turns. The second type of card that is available to play is a wild card, and these wild cards have slightly different options that are associated with them. You can see here that it has all of the different sisters labeled on it, and what it's going to let you do is simply place 2 cubes from your general stock, your stock that you control, so your playable stock, onto any sister. You cannot use the fruit with this, so wild cards are a little bit less varied in their options, but it does let you place anywhere you want. In addition, you could use one of these to move 2 cubes from any one sister to any other sister. So for example, if red played this, they could move their 2 cubes from greed to lust, and now they have control of lust. You're going to do this, and as I said, you start with a hand of 6 cards, and they have all of the different sister combinations. So we have envy and lust, or we have greed and wrath, or we have another envy and wrath, and there's combinations of all of them. You'll have 6 cards, and you're going to play 5 of those 6 cards in turn order. At the end of the round, you're going to look and see who has the majority on each of the sisters. So let's set this up real quick. We'll say that the game is played out something like this, and we've ended up with cubes all over the board, and now we can go ahead and score them. So we'd take a look, first scoring from the first sister, which is Wrath, all the way down to Lust, and then back down to Sloth, who's the 5th sister, over to Envy, who is the 7th. And you're going to look at who has the majority on each of these things, and whoever has the majority is going to score victory points. So in this case, Green, being the only player on Wrath, is going to have the majority there, and they would get this victory point associated with Wrath, and they'd put this behind their player screen to hide it from everyone else. And then their cubes would be taken off of the board, set aside for a moment, and they would get a special benefit. Now the special benefit for Wrath is that you get to move this Wrath marker to any other sister. Now you can't move it to Wrath herself, but you could move it somewhere else. Let's say that you wanted to move it to Gluttony. When Gluttony happens, not only will the leader remove their cubes, but everyone who is on there will remove their cubes from the sister, which is not the normal case. After you've taken the special ability of the sister and gotten your victory point token, you have a chance to buy back your workers. So Green is going to lose their workers here unless they decide to pay for them. And they're going to pay for them with gold. Now, to buy 1 cube back, it's going to cost you 1 gold. And this would go back into your supply here. And that's all the gold I have. But if I had more gold, I could buy, for 2 gold, I could buy 3 cubes back, and for 3 gold, I could buy 5 cubes back, putting them all into my supply. And then you would move on to the next sister, who in this case is Greed. And Greed is going to give you more gold for winning, and again, Green is going to win here. Their cubes would be set aside, they would get 5 gold, and everyone else who is there would get 2 gold. So Blue, for having been there and having presence, would get 2 gold, and that's going to allow them to buy their cubes back later, but also you'll note that their cube stays on the board, giving them more influence for the next round. Green would then have the chance to buy these back, and they'd go back. Gluttony is going to give you fruit, but here we have the Wrath marker, and so everyone's cubes are going to come off. But the leader, Green again, apparently I have a bias for Green, is going to get 5 fruit, so they'll be able to place more workers in the future. And everyone else that's there is going to get 2 fruit, but they're also going to lose their cubes back to the supply unless they buy them back. And you keep doing this. Lust is going to award you with getting some active servants, so it would move more guys from your pool into your usable pool. Sloth is going to actually give you her victory points and a tiebreaker, so anytime you tie, whoever has the most Sloth tokens is actually going to get the win. So if you want to simply try and tie with other people instead of trying to beat them on all of the different spots, you're going to have a benefit by getting Sloth tiles. Pride is going to allow you to select the start player for the next round, which you often want to be the player to your left, because if you're the last player, you have a benefit in placement. And Envy is going to allow you to move 2 servants from any one tile to Envy. And so you could take 2 servants and move them here if you were red in order to give you a head up on the next time. If nobody has the majority, they don't get the benefits, but after 4 rounds of this play, you're going to see who has the most victory points, and you're going to get bonus victory points for having extra money, extra fruit, and for having a combination of all of the 7 different sisters' victory points. After that, you've totaled it all up. Whoever has the most victory points is going to be the winner. And there you have the gameplay of 7 Sisters by Wishing Tree Games. A relatively easy to learn and easy to play area control and hand management game. And There are several nice aspects to this game. One, it plays anywhere between 3 and 6 players, so that's definitely a plus. 2, although it's a relatively simple game in the fact that you really only get 5 actions in each of 4 rounds, so 20 actions over the game, there's a lot of thought that can be put into those actions. Do you want to try and force a player to give you the advantage on a sister now? Maybe you really want an envy victory point, or would you rather set yourself up for the victory point next round after their pieces have been removed? Now, while this is a nice point for strategic game players, it could offer a little bit of analysis paralysis for those who are prone to that type of problem, because there's oftentimes a lot of situations which you could ponder. Maybe you're trying to predict what your opponent will do, or maybe you were trying to think maybe it's best I place over here so they'll place over there so that I can maybe gain an advantage in this area while they're focusing on that. So you may try and lead your opponents into different plays, or you may try and predict what they're doing, which could lead to an extended play time. With all of that said, I think that Seven Sisters is an enjoyable game. I think it's one which lends itself to a lot of strategy while maintaining a relatively short play time with a variable player number, and it's one that is currently looking for your funding on Kickstarter. So with 3 more weeks, if you're interested and you think you'd be interested in funding a game like this, check it out on Kickstarter. I'm sure they would appreciate your support.
Mm.